What up, what up? Winbush here, and today I'm excited to show you guys a new feature in After Effects called multi-frame, where we can actually multi-thread render using the multiple cores on our CPU. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So right now I have the After Effects beta open, and if I come up here to the top right hand corner, click on what's new in beta, it kind of shows us everything that we have here. So all the changes right here, multi-frame rendering via the render queue, which is basically using the multiple cores on your CPU, in which I have an AMD Threadripper 3 with 64 cores. So I've been waiting for this a long time, so I'm very happy to try it out in the beta here. And if you'd like to try this out for yourself, the way that you can access the beta is actually you have to come over to your Creative Cloud. And so once you have the desktop app open for Creative Cloud, usually it will come up with this right here where it says all apps. So if you look on the left hand side right here where it says beta apps, you have access to all the different betas, not only for After Effects, but for Illustrator, Premiere, Character Animator, and Audition. And I already have the After Effects beta installed, which I have open now, and it automatically will install the media encoder as well. So if you want to test this out for yourself, that's where you would access it. So to get started, this is the benchmark project that After Effects actually supplies so that you kind of benchmark everything yourself. And I'll play that here for you guys so you can check it out. But this is a really cool project that After Effects put together. There's a lot of frame going on. There's a lot of keyframing going on, a lot of animation, and it's pretty cool. So this is the project that I used to benchmark it first, but later on, I'm going to actually use one of my projects to benchmark and see how they compare to each other. But if I come over here to my window, come down here to render queue, you can see the top one right here is the one that I actually used with the multi-frame rendering, and it rendered this whole sequence out at around 3 minutes and 38 seconds. But when I did it without it, it actually rendered at 11 minutes and 58 seconds. And so you can see a big difference there. And the one caveat that I noticed when I was looking inside a help file, it was saying that, since this is in beta, a lot of the third-party plugins and stuff like that, they might not work according to plan. And again, this is using the After Effects beta. I'm going to test mine here in a bit. But if I come over here to the help file, I actually leave this link down below for you guys to check out. But this is like, why should I try multi-frame rendering? And it gives you kind of like the different minimum specs that you need, the mid-range specs and the high-range specs. Again, the cores that I have is 64, and this is what I'm running. I'm running an AMD Threadripper 3, which is a 3990X processor. And if I come down to specifications, you can kind of see all the specs that I'm running with. So 64 cores, number of thread 128, etc, etc, base clock at 2.9 gigahertz, and I have about 128 gigs of RAM in here. And the GPU I'm using is the 2080 Ti, and so this is a pretty beefy system, and so I can't wait to run this with my project here. But if I keep running down here, you can see that we have like a GIF playing of the new render queue, how it looks and everything, which like the green and the blue kind of show you like how many frames are running at once, which is really cool. I kind of dig the new button layout, which I'll show you here in a bit. But again, I'll put this inside the description below. You can actually look for the benchmark project right here as well. So if you guys want to test it out on your scene and see how fast it runs for you guys. So I wanted to test one of my latest projects, which I did as crypto art. I put it up on Super Rare. It's called Crypto Mine, and I actually rendered this out multi-pass out of Unreal Engine. I started in Cinema 4D, built it out, rendered it out in Unreal, and then I put it together inside of After Effects here. So I look behind the scenes is basically I have a couple of adjustment layers here. So I have a vignette, I have the glow, which I'm using the Deep Glow by Plugins Anywhere. And I have looks in here by Magic Bullet, and then I have chromatic apparition, which is built in. It's inside of the VR effects there. And then I just have, like a JPEG for grunge. I have some fog stock footage playing here. And then I have my multi-pass renders down here that I've rendered out of Unreal Engine. So I have a reflections pass, a detailed lighting pass, and then my final image. And so there's not a lot going on here, but it is pretty beefy, because if I come over here and look at my ratio, I actually did it at like an ultra wide range. So I did 3840 by 1600. Just wanted to kind of give it that cinematic feel and look to this project piece here. And then once I was done building this out, I actually made another composition in which I duplicated, I add levels to it, hue and saturation, and a little bit of blur. It just kind of helps the different colors and the highlights and everything pop there. Like if I bring it down here and put it on additive mode, here, let me turn it off. you can see like this is what it originally looks like. I mean, it looks good, but it could always use a little bit more pop. So this is my trick to just give it a little bit more pop here. I really like the way that it looks majestic here. And so that's basically the breakdown of the scene. Now, the reason I wanted to test out this scene, not only because it's my latest work that I've done, but also I'm using third-party plugins in here from Magic Bullet and then Plugins Anywhere. And so I want to kind of test out to see how the multi-frame rendering will work when you have it up against these other plugins, because of course they're not fully supported yet, but I still wanted to test it out. And so there's a couple of different steps we have to take in order to test this out. It is inside the documentation, so I'm going to follow it accordingly. And so if I come over here to edit, they make sure I'm going to purge it. So in between each render, you want to make sure that you purge it here. So I came over to edit, purge, all memory and disk cache. I'm going to purge it here. And you can see right now it's asking me to delete about 12.8 gigs. And so I'm going to actually purge this out so everything is nice and clean and ready for our render. And then the next step from here is I'm going to go back up to edit, come down to preferences, and then come down to memory and performance. And right here, I just want to make sure that I have it turned off. And so this is where you actually would enable it. But for the first render, I want to do it with it off, and then I'm going to do it with it on just so I can compare times. And so remember, this one is actually going to be off. So I'm just going to click OK. And then I want to make sure I have my composition selected. I'm going to come up to composition, add the render queue. And then down here, it pops up with my render queue, which I can actually undock it so I can bring it up here to the center, somewhere around here. And then inside of the documentation, it was saying for right now to render out lossless. And so that's what I'm going to follow. And then right here, I'm actually going to name this one no multi, just so I know that this one doesn't have any type of multi-frame. And then I'm going to click render, which I want to kind of look at this as well too, is because I like the, the new layout of the buttons here. I think this looks really cool. They just did a little bit of an overhaul of the UI here, which I think looks really neat. So I'm going to hit render here. And then the other thing that I thought was pretty neat too is this info button. So if I click on info, it's going to tell you like frames per second. It's going to tell you the average time per frame. It's going to tell you how many different frames are rendering at once. And then down here, this just gives you your typical queue, what the current frame is, what the end frame and how long it's going to take and things of that nature. But I thought this info button was really cool just in case you wanted to come back. You have a really long render. You want to kind of see what's going on. I thought the average frame time, I thought that was a really cool, unique attribute that they added there. And so hats off to Adobe for that one. But I'm going to let this one render out and then we'll check back to see how long it took. All right, so it looks like the render is done. When it's all said and done, without the multi-frame, it took around 14 minutes and 48 seconds, which isn't bad. I think that's on par with how it rendered out before. Another caveat is this is a 32-bit project. I'm not sure if that makes a difference or not, but let's get testing this out with using the multi-frame. So again, I'm going to come up to edit. I'm going to come down to purge. I'm just going to purge my memory cache, purge everything here, hit OK. Then I'm going to come back up to edit. Come down here to where we have preferences, memory and performance. And then right here under performance, I'm going to make sure this is check marked on for enable multi-frame rendering. Again, it's in beta. I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to come over to composition, add the render queue. And this time I'm just going to leave this one. And I'm going to make sure that, it's on best settings, leave it at lossless. And then I'm going to change this one underscore multi, so I know that this is the one that's going to be multi-framed. So I'm going to click save, and then I'm going to click render here and let this fire up, in which this should only take a few moments before we start rendering here. So it's showing us that we have multiple different frames rendering at once. Right here it says concurrent frames rendering, which is 3. I would hope that we could get a lot more. Again, this is in beta, so hopefully as they work these out, it's going to take more advantage of the cores here. But already it's looking pretty promising. It's saying frames per second, 0.63. I can't remember what the other one was, but I mean, that's going pretty fast there. Again, this one is using third-party plugins. We have Magic Bullet Looks in here. We have Deep Glow, and then we have a bunch of the native After Effects plugins as well, such as Vignette, curves, hue and saturation, things of that nature. But it seems to be going pretty fast here. So I'm going to let this one finish out and then we'll just compare times once it's done. So it looks like we have our results now. So with the multi multi-frame rendering. It's rendered out at 14 minutes and 13 seconds, which is just a few seconds faster, in which I kind of expected it to be similar on par. Reason of the fact is I know for a fact that Magic Bullet Looks and the Deep Glow plugins, I know that those aren't really ready for this since this is in beta and it just came out. So I would expect that, you know, like future updates, that this stuff is going to be more optimized to work with the multi-frame rendering. But with the original benchmark project, we saw some really big results in there, and so this is very promising for After Effects moving forward. So hopefully you guys found this video interesting. I think there's a lot of promise with this multi-frame rendering moving ahead once they actually implement it fully in After Effects. But of course, the third-party plugin companies are going to have to get on board, optimize it to work, and then we'll be fully set to go. So if you did download the benchmark project and you ran some numbers, make sure you leave me a comment down below. Tell me what your specs are and how your stuff is rendering out. I'd be really curious to see what different people's speeds are depending on their specs. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, leave me a big thumbs up, and until next time, stay fresh, keep creating, and I'll catch you in the next video. I'll see you soon. Take care. What up, Winbush here. And if you guys are into crypto art, make sure you go to superrare.co/Winbush, where I've been posting up regularly my different crypto art. As soon as one sells, I have another one ready to go. The one that I did in this project here, this one is currently up for sale as of when this video is up. So make sure you guys go check me out there on Super Rare as well. Thank you guys again. Take care.